That they never had to buy shoes.
Dibble.
Most people, they don't have shoes on.
We're live.
They have socks.
Oh.
Yeah.
They don't have shoes on. And same way with suits. Main difference is going to the Salvation Army, or what they call it now, Goodwill.
It did work a lot.
You did? Test, test. It's dead now.
Yeah. Y'all see it.
Test one, test, test. All right. Sooner than later, we will have a sound system and a camera system for it.
See the state primary points now, if you go to your sponsor, you'll do it bad. Yes, you'll get out and start doing some road work, start roll again. Supposed to be reopening Mike Haley's cousin Raymond, Spring Bean.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So who owns the building?
Aaron, where's last name is, it owns that leases Punches down Concord. He got both from Mike Haley, he still owns it. Raymond's gonna be renting
Do
it.
they close benches in Concord?
Yeah. Yeah. He's gonna be renting this place to Raymond. If it all goes through, you know how it is.
There's a sign out there today.
That's just a little bit, we ain't there yet.
Many people know who he's.
Standing there, so I've heard rumors that it was sold. Again, I mean, this was fresh last Friday, somebody walked up, seen the sign in the paper.
I was told by Dana's daughter no, but
They might not know either.
There's a call, Jerry Morton, he's never returned the call, I don't read.
at this time we will call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody that may be watching. We appreciate you tuning in or watching later this evening or tomorrow later hours. At this time we will have a moment of silence and say the Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone could please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
members of the board. I have two changes I would recommend the board to consider. The first one is item number 9. I received a call late this afternoon from David Tribble, a representative of the developer, asked if we would continue it until the August 3rd meeting. He said he couldn't be here. He could speak to us digitally. I've got his number, but I would recommend that the board continue that, or have to make the motion to continue that in the adoption of the agenda. Also, under item 16, there will be need for a closed session for two reasons. I actually have given it to the Mayor Pro Tem. He would read that as a part of the motion too. We would go into closed session, and what I will ask you at the end of the meeting is to do what we did at the last meeting, and so as to allow us to continue to meet in here. The motion will be to adjourn and go into closed session, and we will announce that there will be no action taken by the board as a result of the closed session.
Okay. Any discussion?
Mayor, at this time I move we approve the agenda as presented with item 5 being continued. Excuse me, that is correction, with item 9 being continued until the August 3rd meeting. And as we arrive at item 16, that being changed to read as follows: consider a motion to go into closed session as authorized under General Statute 143-318.11, subsection A, paragraph 3 and 6.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The agenda is adopted as stated. This time we will ask Mr. Barefoot for any citizen comments.
Madam Mayor, members of the board, I have one. I received an email from Nadine Cherry, 410 West Garden Street, Landis, and it goes as follows. I would like to see the town sponsor a yearly fishing tournament at Lake Corridor. I believe this would be one way we could draw good people into the town. If the town would be, and if the town would be unwilling to sponsor it, maybe we could get outside sponsors, as was done for the mud run in the past. Just an idea. Thank you, Nadine Cherry.
Thank you, Ms. Cherry, for your comment, and thank you for dropping that off here at Town Hall. We will move to number 7.
Item number 7, a little bit of housework. Typically, boards in the beginning of the calendar year will go ahead and establish the meetings that can be placed on the web, and people will know well in advance of what they are. And sometimes there's a change due to holidays. If we did it in January, we don't make note of it, so we're asking you for the remainder of this year to approve the meetings as listed. The August meeting on the 3rd, September meeting on the 14th, due to Labor Day, October 5th on schedule, the 5th, November the 2nd on schedule, and December 7th on schedule.
Okay. Are there any discussion? Have a motion?
Not at this time. Mayor and Board, I move that we consider approving this meeting schedule for the rest of this calendar year with the dates listed below in notation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We will go to budget amendments.
Madam Mayor and Board, we have before you tonight a budget amendment. It seems really early in the year to have one of those, but we have this one as really a continuation of what you saw in last year's budget. The police department received a grant to provide firearms and ammunition last year, $25,000. It had to be spent and paid and then reimbursed by September of this year. they have submitted their purchase order and in the process of obtaining those materials, but they did not come in prior to the June 30th date. So we need to basically just carry forward the revenue and the expenditure, so it's not a net change or a net increase. It's just bringing that forward into this year's budget.
Any questions, discussion?
Do they have any idea when it may come in?
I look forward to being in August.
Mayor, I move we consider the amendment to reinstate the police grant and move that into this fiscal year's records.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. We will skip page 5, that is number 9. We will go to 17.
Mayor, excuse me. Mayor and members of the board, this came out of the woodworks last Thursday. And the legislature had approved $150 million that was going strictly to counties. They've come back and added another 150, with 25% must be spent by the municipalities. We had a Zoom meeting and it went over the aspects of the program. We're eligible for $66,296 and change, pending approval by the commissioners, and they staff based it on population, which is a logical way to do it. And there are restrictions on how the funds can be used. One idea, I think it must, they've already must be looking at it, because the county has actually hired an architect who will be made available to the towns for any projects that the architect can help with. We had already thought about, with the COVID virus and watching people come to the door and can't get in, and our drive-through is out back on the other side, that the front of the building sets up nicely to have a similar to a bank window, drive-through window that you would walk up to. And my opinion is it would go in the middle section, where a citizen could walk up to it. Either one of the two ladies there would go, and much as you would in a bank setting, and take a payment, find out what they want, etc. I think it would also be good excuse me, if we could also do a night drop. I've been looking online at some and through my lifetime, and it was all been to drive-through windows. I think there are some that could be put side by side in that section. It would be a godsend right now for the people that come and want to pay in cash. They can't do it. They've either got to go get a check and put it in the drop box or through some other means. So my recommendation that the project has to be approved by the commissioners. They have to have it to them by their August 4th meeting, I believe it is. It's a really tight window, and the project has got to be completed by December 30th. The county manager believes that there are ways to get around that, and they probably won't be that strict on the completion date so long as the contracts are led or the equipment is purchased. And the thing that we've got to have approval for sooner than later is authorization to pursue this project. I'll be glad to answer any questions about it or otherwise.
Any discussions?
I have a few questions, or at least one. Are these funds, the $66,296.98 coming to the town regardless of any renovations, or only if renovations are made?
I don't think they come to us without, we've got to expend it now. We got to spend it on something before December 30.
And they want it to be COVID related, like they want it to be some type of PPT.
Yeah, we could buy equipment,
I mean, you could set up a drive-through, you could, I mean, there are ways to go about it. Say we were in a bank building, you could reopen the teller lines, I mean, whatever. From what I understand from my community meeting last Wednesday, that it needed to be spent on preparing for the reopening and the safety for your employees, the safety for your citizens, and a way to work that out without it being your own expenditure and you're getting this grant money.
So I think that would be multiple projects.
Could be. If right now, if you walk in Town Hall, you go up you walk in Town Hall, you go straight to Janine. There is no covering for her. If you go up the ramp, there is no covering there for Debbie or Libby either. It's just an open window space where you could, reach through. We could possibly put up glass, plexiglass, something of that nature there to where they can't breathe on each other, a slide, a hole, could possibly put in a microphone to where they could hear easier. You could do that there as well as the window from the outside. I mean, there's endless possibilities, but it needs to be used for COVID-related issues.
But not just one project, it can be.
No, I mean, if we could do 4 projects
We could
with
even do something at the
66.
police department if you needed to, as far as.
Once we get an idea of what the expense would be to do the walk-up pay window, we might try to improve the drive-through box. I'm a firm believer that, and I've seen articles that this pandemic
It's not going away.
hopefully is not going to be the last one. And the value of that safe way of people paying their bills, the front of that building to me is just perfect because you've got really nice walkway, you've got
Shade.
out of the weather, you got shade. Even people dropping an application for the pool, they can put them in the drop box. I just think there's lots and lots and lots of
Which we had talked about doing it back when it first started.
we'd already talked about
Because it had been brought to our attention about an issue possibly with our current Dropbox. So we were trying to come up with some type of, it was just an open discussion within Town Hall. I think that I personally, now this is just me, I personally see things going this way. Whether it be the app, whether it be log in online or walk up and pay, and you're not really in contact with people anymore, or not as openly as usual. So, any other discussion?
No.
Tony?
I would say, I've been online and I've reached out to some friends in the banking business, not that I have a lot of them. Somewhere there's a stash of banks all the time closed, because of, consolidation. There's got to be some secondary market for them, and I don't know why that wouldn't be a good fit. And if so, we could, save some funds for other projects. But we got to move in a hurry on this one.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that the town accept or approve project for renovation of Town Hall by adding a walk-up window and a night drop box to the town.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mayor, members of the board, item 11 is I'm bringing this forward for a couple of reasons, just beyond you all approving the direction I'm recommending we go. We did have a position that's formerly an administrative position, and in the time that I've been here, Ms. Seifert and I have spent a lot of time looking at processes and procedures that we've been following. And the one thing that is most clear is we are lacking in personnel. And when I say personnel, I mean a skilled personnel person. Because when you look at the full range of personnel responsibilities, you know, not just the hiring, the firing, the training, record keeping, etc., we've been lax, and it's time to be unlaxed. I do believe that the position could also assume responsibilities of town clerk. One of the most, I guess, the best comp I could refer to would be the lady in the town of Nashville. I worked there twice, and she had a degree from Meredith, and she was also the town clerk and did a great job. And you know, I just think it's the right way to go. I'll be glad to answer any questions any of the board members have. I might add that if the board is agreeable, we'll advertise immediately, and I would probably close it by maybe the last week of July, and try to move forward fairly quickly.
Okay. Any discussion on the position? Mr. Everdash? Mr. Stewart?
No.
Mr. Poirier?
No.
Ms. Dose? Got how it works.
I just want to make not a recommendation, but commend both of y'all on the job description.
It's pretty,
I mean, you've done a great job.
Thank you. It's a composite.
yeah, very thorough. Appreciate it very much.
I always like to, and just as a side note, in my experience, whenever every employee I've hired since I've been a manager, when we hire an employee, they get a letter from me, because the manager does hire all, even though it's a police position, whatever. But it spells out, you know, what the pay is, what the expectations are, how long your probationary, your subject to the personnel, anything they need to know to keep them from coming back 6 or 7 months ago and say, well, that is not what I was told I was going to get. And I've not found one yet in personnel files. They've been in personnel files ever since I've been here, and that will continue in the future. Should.
Mayor, I move at this time that we consider this aforementioned reclassification of the former administrative services position.
I second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mayor and members of the board, the next item is also related to personnel. I've known for a long time, I've been aware I've known for a long time that during my career there were cities that operated under a public safety system, and I think Chapel Hill was one of the larger who did that. And the whole idea of it is, you know, it's all public safety, it's all emergency management services. When the alarm goes off, you know, your police respond. If you have public safety, the idea of public safety very simply is you have police officers who are trained, certified as firefighters. They carry equipment in the trunk of the car. They get a slightly higher pay or, for being qualified in that role. And so what it does is it gives you a lot more people on the scene. It's my recollection that Chapel Hill gave it up, and if I recall correctly, and this may not be correct, it was some issues about training. But what has stuck with me in the years, going to smaller communities, and I think we are a good example. We have very small fire departments relying on a few full-time firefighters. We're relying on volunteers and or part-timers. And the same thing is true, not so much true, but similar in the size of a police department. We maybe have one or two officers at a time, or sometimes less than that. And it just seems clear to me that a small town is where it might work the best. Some years ago, I don't remember when it was, they had a standard created that said you got to have 4 people on, 2 on, 2 out before you send people into a structured fire. Well, that can be hard in a volunteer fire department. It can be hard in a mixed department like we have here, which is one of the reasons we have mutual aid. Not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons you have mutual aid. And the smaller you are, the more you rely on mutual aid. So it just seems clear to me that having a system that would allow police officers who respond to a fire call, if they're going to go to direct traffic or whatever they're going to do. But if they're also qualified to fight a fire, you got enough people there immediately to get into a house and perhaps save somebody's life. I'm not suggesting necessarily that I think the value in taking this step and authorizing the advertisement of a public safety director who would be over both. One of the components of the program is you have a strong police second person, and you have a similar on the fire side. And then as you hire officers over time, those that come to you as a police officer who's fire certified, or you may have some people on the fire side that want to go to get the BLET. It's my understanding we have some reserve police officers that may be trained. It's not out of the question to have employees on the town staff that might be certified in fire. That wouldn't be what you would call public safety, but still, you have the ability to build a contingency of people who can respond, and especially over time as you get, some of them certified on the police side. I think I mentioned in my memorandum, particularly when you expand your full-time firefighters, you got to do it 3 at a time. Otherwise, you got a shift of got 2, you got a shift of got 3, and that's a big number financially to have to look at. So this doesn't work that way. If we have an opening in the police side, and we hire a public safety officer in that position, that's one shift that you got 3, and he's still going to be a policeman as well. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. I think there's benefit in, I know here we've had a manager that was the police chief. I know we've had a public works director that was the police chief. But to me, truly, you have a police officer whose responsibility is law enforcement, scheduling people, training people, and you do the same thing on the fire side. So I think it would adapt itself very easily. My hope would be that we would get applications from somebody on the police side that is either a public safety officer now or has fire training as well. I also mentioned that the town of, no, not Benson, Butner, up at the prison. It's one where he got, man stole all the money from Wall Street. They have it, and they sent us, they were very gracious. The lady sent me, a job description, and then there's job descriptions for the captain on each, public safety captains, as well as, public safety officers. So all that is available if we decide to go down that road later on. But right now, I'm just asking you to consider, or at least have a discussion about, do you think it's a good idea for town of Landis to pursue, a public safety director?
Okay, at this time, I would ask that any board members have any questions, please open up for discussion.
I've talked about it for years, and never could get anywhere with it. We had so many other problems going on, but I wonder if we would urge our volunteer firemen, if we let them keep their turnout gear in the trunk of their car like whole lots of the other volunteer fire departments do, then they could respond from their house. The way it is now, they got to come here, the truck's gone, so why should I respond? That's what they tell me. Why should I respond? I can't ride the truck, I can't go to the fire. I think that needs to be changed.
I think that would be something for the person to consider.
And I don't know that they'd be opposed to that. Our assistant chiefs or officers, I don't know if they'd be opposed to that. I can't imagine why they'd be opposed to it. You'd be told, you got to park the block down the street, don't come up directly to the fire scene, block the fire trucks, which that can be worked out. If I'm not mistaken, Monroe used to have this public safety like you're talking about, whether they still do or not, I don't know. But I'm not opposed to any of what you're talking about. I just think I'm bringing that into light for one time. Could we not see if the officers are interested in giving the volunteer firemen their turnout gear, keeping the trunk of their car at home, let them respond from their house? When I was on China Road, when I was on Landis 22 years, we rode the truck for everybody who lived in town, and half of our folk worked in the lean mill, so they didn't have any traveling distance to do, and they got paid if they responded to a fire. When I was on China Road, I could catch the second truck, I couldn't catch the first truck. I'd catch the second truck, and if it was gone, unless everything was gone, you couldn't respond POV, private vehicle. If your fire truck in the building was gone, then you could come in your personal vehicle. I'd just like to see what the feelings of our volunteers would be if they were allowed to keep their own turnout gear and respond from home. Like I said, nothing whatsoever to do with what you're talking about.
Right.
Administrative, but, you know. I'd like to get some feedback on what they'd feel about that, if they could respond from home.
Okay. So, now discussing the memorandum that Mr. Barefoot brought before us today. Do we have any discussion on that?
I have a question. Have you looked at the salary range or?
Okay, very good question, and I brought, I haven't decided finally. If you all approve me to move forward, I will complete that research and send it out to you. Currently, Becky Veazey, the lady that did the study for you all in 2013, was gracious enough to give me an updated version of the salary schedules so we can implement them as a part of the changeover to the new pay system. But it would be in the at least level 29 or 30, and that's starting at somewhere between 70, somewhere between 70 and 75, 80. About what an assistant manager would do. A lot of it you have to do is measured against your current position.
Okay. And you said that was 70, 75 to 80.
Somewhere in that range. I mean, I don't want to be tied down. I want to look at what what some of the other surrounding people pay in that position.
Okay.
It is an exempt position, so it's exempt from overtime.
And this person would spend 50/50 their time, 50% with fire department, 50% with fire department.
Police and fire. I would expect, I mean, what I want, if I'm here when the interviews occur, and I hope to be here when that happens, I want the person to convince me that he'll put his efforts where he needs to be initially. A lot of it's going to depend on who's in second command, and you know, he's got to get them both. There's got to be some structure established in both. I'd like to see. I would suggest that he take the leadership in both departments, maybe a few people down, or the ones with the experience, and get them together and just talk about how to make it the very best system it can be.
Again, great job on the job description.
Thank you. I didn't listen.
Back to that, what I was talking about, if we've got volunteer firemen or special police, if they're not doing their time they're supposed to do to keep their certifications, we don't need them.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that, and we're working on that.
Yeah, we don't need them. They're not going to do their time.
Would this person by chance be able to be the part-time fire chief? Along with that, since we're going to be wearing two hats again.
So that's what they would be, is they would be,
So
per se.
if this person's hired, we wouldn't need a fire chief, or
No, this person will be the fire
They
chief.
will be the
Right.
fire chief
He will
and the
be-
police chief, and it will be called public safety. It will not be where he will pull back the people that have applied for police chief that we have not moved on. And that will be pulled back, and then he will present public safety versus just one department.
so this person will be the police chief and the fire chief for $75,000 to $80,000.
Correct. And it's
The-
called public safety.
Now, as far as the existing applicants, I would notify them that the job description has changed.
Correct.
They can remain a candidate. I don't know off the top of my head if any of them would be fully qualified. And then, and you have the rare possibility that there won't be anybody applying that meets the full qualification. I don't think that'll be a problem. And the full qualifications are to be BLET certified, hopefully a criminal justice degree of some sort, and certification in firefighting. And I think we'll get some applicants on that, to be honest with you. I don't think that's going to be a problem.
So does that make more, like, it, and then they would have a second underneath them, assistant on each side, and then we would go down the tier from there.
I have a few questions or comments for you. In creation of establishing this as a public safety director to encompass police chief duties and fire chief duties, given the desire for Chief Miller's to step aside, and obviously our chief of police vacancy, preliminarily, I like the notion. I'd like to see an overlay of how that's going to impact payroll versus in our current fiscal year, how that's going to, because we will then have salary for said individual. Will that also increase what we would have to pay the second in command for each respective departments?
I would say no.
Okay. That answer, that helps me.
Right
as
now,
well, to see the overall expense with it.
Right now, if you take what's allotted for the police chief salary and what is being paid now for
Fire chief,
fire chief,
you're there.
you're close. It's not
Very
there.
close.
You're close, it's not there.
So
Assuming it's going to be in 75, 78.
You're, yes, absolutely.
Really close.
Absolutely.
So considering this creation or establishment for public safety director, in the event that this is posted and there are no qualified applicants, that wouldn't preclude us from going back and advertising for an individual police chief or an individual fire chief.
Yes.
Is that correct? Thank you.
And, one thing that you can kind of fast forward and think, you have a public safety director and you have a fire. He goes to the fire scene and he goes to the fire scene, and he can take command of the fire scene, which means all the other firefighters can go in and structurally fight the fire, or he can leave it with the person on site command. I mean, that regular, fire chief does that very same thing. In this case, you got a police chief that immediately has the ability to do that, or they'll fight the fire just during the fire.
But you felt like you were reasonably sure, probably some people out there that would.
I wouldn't bet the bank, but I would bet the credit union. They'll be out.
I knew with your experience, you probably had a good idea.
If this happens pretty quick, do we have a vehicle, or we gotta buy a vehicle?
Should have a vehicle, a police chief's car. I think that's not a problem. She gave me the numbers. If you look at current allocation for the police chief and then what's going for the fire side, it's $83,000 to get.
Oh, okay.
There would be no additional.
So what's
I think we can get
police say?
somebody for $83,000.
Police is at, I think it was 70 or 71, and then we're currently paying 13 for the fire.
Okay, I was a little under, but I was right there thinking, it's right there at seven,
Yeah.
I had 78, but okay.
But
Okay.
I won't try not to belabor the point, but I'm a believer, if you got a leader and a good leader, and he can lead men or women, it doesn't matter what, one being the fire, one being, it don't matter. You just bring them together and you help make it, it doesn't need to be fire versus police, it needs to be.
No, we
public
need to work
safety.
together. I mean, we have a small, I do have a question about, will there be a stipulation on how far out they can live?
That's what I was fixing to ask.
Good.
I stole words out of your mouth there.
We don't need him living in Lexington, happen.
I hadn't even thought about it, to be honest with you.
I didn't
What
see
is
it, but
What
then
is
in front of
what
me.
is our policy now? Do we require anything?
Is it 6 miles now?
We have a stipulation for the police, and I think I don't know if it's done in miles or in commute time, but
It's supposed
it's,
to be 15 miles. I shouldn't say it's supposed to be. My understanding is that it was 15 miles for police. Fire, I don't know.
I
Used to
think.
be 1 mile outside the city limits, is what it was when I was fire chief.
Okay, well,
I think I'll probably recommend to you all, that it be, maybe not it needs to be
within,
very close.
It needs to be within reason.
Yes, we
All
just
those
need
things
to
let's
be.
play into the system.
We don't need to be, I know the size of the town, it's a little difficult.
They can't
You
live in
gotta
Harrisburg.
town.
Yeah, Lexington.
But they need to be in China Grove, Landis, somewhere in this county.
North End
Or
Canals.
if you're in that, I'm sure I don't think that's the direction. If you're in that county, better not be far across the county line. That's what.
okay, I didn't read it, and then I thought maybe I missed it, and so I knew that was something that wasn't mentioned, so, okay. And, I thought I had another question. Any other questions, Mr. Poyer?
No.
Do you guys want to, I'm just gonna be open-ended here, do you guys want to make a decision on this tonight? Would you like to get citizen feedback? Would you feel that it needs to be discussed?
I feel we should move forward on it. We need to get these positions filled. These are some big.
I think that these departments have been in limbo for quite some time. And they need, and our wonderful servicemen and women that we have, they need some answers as well. Any further questions, Mr. Stewart?
No.
Mr. Evercash? Mr. Poyer? Ms. Hicks? All right, if there are no further questions, let's do it.
If you're heading in the direction of moving to
Yes.
allow me to establish that position, I would add, you say, subject to verbal approval from each of you when I get I'll give you the salary range, and I'll give you, what I'm recommending, the language on residence. You know, to get that back.
Okay.
My last comment or question would be, will we have to come back with any budget amendments to encompass the salary for this position? I think you've answered, think you've answered that with those figures, correct? Okay.
What?
I'll make a motion that we consider letting Mr. Barefoot move forward on the public safety director's position for the town of Landis.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I'm forward to this. I did just get a message that the fire department is to have to live within 6 miles. Now, that's for volunteer members, but full-time have never had that requirement. Because full-timers work obviously a 24-hour shift, they're here. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Alright, and now we are, it's your turn.
Forgive me for my attempt at humor, but I don't really have a report to give you. But I was somewhere the other day and I heard this old Hank Williams song, "We're Still Living Till Everything Is Okay." And you remember, I know you remember that song. And so that's my message. We're getting along, we're getting a lot of things done. And I want to compliment Ms. Seifert and staff. They're in the right place. The last one is item 14 this is planning and zoning activity report. Read that and call me if you have any questions.
Page 25. Okay. I don't have any questions. Do you guys have any questions on that? I guess I do have one question. On the page 28, can I ask that here or you want me to call you?
I mean, look at me.
I can call you if you need. I do not remember these being approved, the subdivision 1-20, sub 320.
I'll have to go back with you on that.
Okay. I just wasn't sure, did those have to come before the planning board? I guess is my question. Because they are subdivisions, did they have to come before the planning board? Because
No, they're exempt.
Okay.
From the one page.
Okay.
They're small enough that they meet the ordinance.
Okay, perfect. That's my question. All right. We will now go for board member comments. I'll start with you, Mr. Overcash. Nothing. Mr. Stewart?
No comments, thank you.
Ms. Sales? Mr. Foyer? All he wants to know is turnout gear and cars. And I have no comments other than we greatly appreciate you hanging on here in Landis. Pandemic is not everybody's friend, but we do appreciate the Dropbox and you guys hanging in there with us. And we hope to have something new and exciting in the next couple months for you guys to be able to pay if town hall's still not open. And I think that is it for me.
Mayor, at this time, for item 16 in the agenda as advertised, in recognition of the need for us as a board to go into closed session and to do so in a setting that allows for social distancing, I move that the meeting for tonight, July 13th, be adjourned and or go into closed session as authorized under General Statute 143, 318, 11A, 3, and 6, and make it duly noted that the closed session will not require any public action by the board at its conclusion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
No discussion?